Well, hello again, Agora community. Welcome back to another conversation we have someone on the stream today that I've actually wanted to have on for quite a while. Very interesting character. JF and I have known each other for quite some time, actually. Actually like a long time, because it was back in the turning of the millennia, I think. We worked together on a project here in Montreal called Cayenne of the Prophecy. This was a very interesting time. As a matter of fact, it's going to bring back all kinds of weird nostalgic memories for me, because this was my first time in Montreal working professionally, and I was this production was a very special one for a variety of reasons. I think the biggest reason why it was important is because it was like the hot project. Oh, my glasses all crooked. It was the hot project at the time. All the animators in the city, they all wanted to be on this thing because it was a feature film, fully CG. And that back then, like 2000, 2001-ish, if I remember correctly, it was around that time. JF can correct me when he's on, but it was definitely early 2000s, that's for sure. And there wasn't a lot of that stuff going on, at least in Canada. So just in general, actually, like if it wasn't Disney or like, Pixar, there was not a lot of this stuff going on. So I got a chance to meet a very interesting cross-section of the talent in Montreal. It was some of the people I met then, I'm still very good friends with. JF, I would definitely I would include on that list, although we don't get to see much of each other anymore, but I would still consider him a very close friend, and he is an amazing human being. Since then, we did work together a few other times. We were working on a couple different productions, but more notably, Ubisoft. He actually was what they call the directeur de métier, and I'm doing a very terrible job, so he'll laugh at me when he comes on. But essentially, think of it like department head. They were every department of crafts, like essentially, like animation had one, art had one, programming had one. Basically, they were the ones that were supposed to be fostering growth and like learning and networking and all the good things about trying to support a community of artists that are specifically aligned with a certain type of craft. He was doing that for a while at Ubisoft, and he was doing a lot of really great things back then. And since then, he's kind of gone on his own, and he's done some very interesting projects, and he's had an interesting ride along the way. So I think this is a perfect time to bring him in, and he can kind of give us a little bit of his sort of first perspective telling of that adventure. So let's bring in Jeff. Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Brent.
Okay, first of all, how did I do with our history, and how was the history lesson, and how was my French? Not very good. I know the second
French,
one was not very good.
As always, chapeau, Brent.
Oh, merci beaucoup. C'est trop gentil.
You have an accent I really like, because it's like it's super noble and super.
Yeah. I tend to be. That's it. You've always said this. It's like I tend to be overly polite with, and when I speak another language, I want to make sure that I'm being very polite. Like whenever I say "je vous en prie," people laugh their asses off, because they're just like, that is like definitely the way some fancy like Parisian would say thank you, and I'm like, oh well, that's just how I roll, I guess.
It's like you learned French with Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah, maybe I did.
Yeah,
maybe I did. How do you know?
And your history lesson was pretty good, I think.
Okay.
And it was 2001, kind of.
It was 2001. Okay, yeah. I remember it was around that time.
We saw the planes crashing. So
true. That's right. We
had this afternoon, the whole day was like, everybody was sitting in front of the screen. It was like, what's happened?
We were at work that day, right there down on like Rue McGill, and we were not Rue McGill. It was like Beaver Hall, right? That's where the office was.
McGill.
Yeah. Okay, McGill. So I remember that was the day that 9/11. That's right. Yeah. And I remember hearing news in the morning on the radio, and we all kind of showed up to work, kind of like, what the hell's going on? And we couldn't work. We were paralyzed that day. There were some buildings that were even evacuated all across North America at the time, because people didn't know what the hell was happening. It was all happening in real time. That's right. Oh man, what a galvanizing moment that was. I totally forgot. Yeah. So yeah, that definitely should that should be the reason why I would never forget the timing. But that makes sense. Yeah. So since then, you've done many things since the towers fell, and I think that I think it'd be interesting for you to kind of tell some of that story, because I think it's always interesting to hear someone who made a career for themselves as an animator, as an animation director, as an animation supervisor. You did lots of that, and then you got to the point where you sort of evolved to the next level, where you started to kind of care, like not that you didn't care about production, but you started to think more about building teams and helping organizations on a higher level. And I guess that's what led to the first thing that you ended up doing when you left Ubisoft. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's true. It's hard to follow. When I got to animation, I really liked animation. But during my first, when Ubisoft got to Montreal, I was at the NAD Center. So that was 96, 97. And
that was the place to go back then in Montreal, for sure. It was a very popular school. It still is.
It was of course. It was 10 months. It was a private school, private school model, but there was a bit of college in there. And it was we were learning Softimage. Yeah. And we had some animation classes, some classes of everything. And when Ubisoft got to Montreal, they went directly to schools, and they went to interviews. So the first time I got an interview with Ubisoft, it was at NAD Center, and the Ubisoft was non-existent in Montreal. And they asked, so what would you do? Would you be like modeler or animator? And I was like, animator, I guess. Yeah. And so I was super happy because for the whole career, I love animation. You know it, I love animation. I love movement. I love motion. And to me, it's so fun to observe people's movement and their being, and their posture and their. So I was really glad I did, and it was also kind of in my blood, the same way many people is just they have it. So it's much easier to teach these people, and so it's just possible for everybody, I think, to learn, but it's just so much work for some people, and so for some people it's just a lazy piece, so I was blessed, and so it was, I got there. I was the first artist at Ubisoft, and so
I didn't know that you were the first artist at Ubisoft. I did not know that.
In July we were not even on Saint Laurent. We were in an old bank. The first
really
Ubisoft was in an old bank in Old Montreal. And we were 10 people, I think. Patrice Deslay was there, the day before me. And
Patrice is the creative director of Assassin's Creed, just in case people don't know who that is.
Exactly. And the guy who interviewed me the last day, the third time, the guy who interviewed me told me, well, we have no computer, but take mine.
Amazing.
I ended up taking.
Wow.
I kind of had a head start also at first.
Yeah.
That's what it led to, I had it because everybody else got in 2 weeks after. I was already, I knew my way around,
That's it. You made a big difference. Yeah. Like 2 weeks is it's an eternity when a studio is like first opening up shop, right?
Exactly.
That's crazy.
And there were amazing talent. I don't know how they did it, but they got to town, and the people they hired, it's insane, Yeah. All they're so good. They're still leaders of the industry that they got right off the bat.
That's it. That's it. Now they're the ones running studios now, essentially, like their own studios. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's kind of how it goes here.
Some people are still in production, but they've got more than 20 years experience, and they are just like it's incredible. So because of all that, I got into kind of a leading position super quickly for my young age, and I think too quickly, because it put me in a position where it wasn't the same friendship with people as if I was in a team, So there was already kind of a hierarchy. So it's not a regret, but I think it was a bit early to go into that, and also maturing artistically. I was 20 and I was leading, I was art directing on on 3 projects. So it was, and then
I'm curious. I'm gonna put you on pause for a second because this is an interesting topic. Why do you feel like it was too fast? What about that speed? Like what is making you feel that way? Basically,
I could manage. I could do it.
Yeah,
I was okay to do it, but it wasn't the same dynamic with people around.
Okay. So you felt like because you jumped into a leadership position so quickly that the peers around you were like, why are we just suddenly following this guy when he's sort of like at the same level as us?
Not necessarily, but I think the way I saw myself. So it was coming from me.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to ask. We talk about imposter syndrome a lot on this stream, and so I think that's probably what was fueling it. That's what I was getting to.
I'm sure I overcompensated. My managing career has been swinging a set of swinging. I was over directive, much too slack, and then middle, and then at one point I started being more of a coach. And my dad actually, I chatted with. There was a crucial night around the fireplace outside with my dad, and he told me how he gave me a few cues, and it turned me into being much more conscious about my way of coaching people. I was always doing it, but as I went, I left some things aside, like being directive or being too accommodating. I started being very much more about the responsibility, because everybody at work just wants to be to go as far as they can with the talent they have. They want to be able to use their talent. That's what people want to do.
That's the point.
And if you can foster that and help people reach that goal, everybody's happy. And so that, and then I did a few productions like that, like swinging one and going much more for coaching. And I didn't really know before I knew. And then I started teaching because at one point the industry grew. So at one point, their electronic arts got to Montreal, and then ADOS got to Montreal, and it was getting crowded, and it was hard to get by good juniors. And at that point, it was still private schools, and there was no university. There was University of Quebec in Témiscamingue that started a project, and so Ubisoft said, we're gonna make a university. And then they got approached by a college who said, we want to create, there's no training for being a level designer because level design just happened.
That's right.
And so we're going to train level designers. So we started doing programs, and we built program with the college. So Ubisoft, freed some people and said, go build programs with this college. And then we built Ubisoft Campus. Which was an animation program, a modeling program, and then a level design program. And then I started teaching there.
And it was connected with a couple of schools, right? Like there was a connection with Dawson College, but there was also a connection with Cégep de Ville de Montréal, right? Like that was
at first for 2 years, I think it was only Cégep de Matane, which is 700 kilometers away. And then colleges from Montreal said, what are they doing on our turf?
For sure. They get a little territorial. That's funny.
And so they got in.
Okay.
And so, but I loved teaching for 5 years. I loved it. And by the end of that, before it ended a bit, I told Ubisoft, you know what? I see stuff happening in the class. And this helped my management a lot, because I was really, really in a mentor position at that point, and I was learning so much from these guys. Again, the classes were amazing, and it was people from 18 to 65, but mostly 25 to 35. And I started at 28. I was starting teaching at 28, so it was friends.
That's right. It was such a big range, because I think part of it was I remember because Quebec was also using it as a way of sort of like a retraining program, right? Like they were making sure that people had so you had some people that were like, it was their second or third careers. That's why you had some people were much older. Some people were just going because they were just really interested, and maybe they were retired and they wanted to learn a new hobby or a new craft. And I remember because I taught there for a little while, and I had a really, I witnessed that too. A very wide spectrum of ages and demographics in those classrooms. It was very interesting.
And the first years of that, because there was a name Ubisoft on the banner, Ubisoft Campus. like we had so many admissions.
sure.
We
For
had
sure.
125 candidates in 1 year, and
Yeah.
from that we took 50 into interview, and we took 25 in the end. So we also had very skilled people to
Right.
train,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
and
Do
you know,
you remember timeline was this before or after Prince of Persia? Because I remember Prince of Persia, Sands of Time is the one project that really Ubisoft Montreal exploded after that, because it was very successful. And at that point, they really started scaling up their operations, and they became a bigger household name. Ubisoft was already pretty big, but they were mostly just a French based sort of software company that was doing, like, I think, I don't remember what the titles were. I guess Raving Rabbits might have been one of their first ones back in the day. But
no, that came in 2007, let's say. But
did it? Oh, okay. I don't know why it came earlier.
First big success in Montreal was Splinter Cell. That was released.
Splinter Cell was really, it was before Prince of Persia. Okay,
something like 2002. Because when I left for Kaina in 2001, I was art director on Splinter Cell at first, and it was nothing at that time. I was just out of a Donald Duck game, so I was directing a game with Disney at Ubisoft, and then when we finished that project, Ubisoft bought Red Storm, who was making Rainbow Six. So they bought all the Tom Clancy franchise, and they ditched the Rainbow logo, and they switched for their new logo. So Ubisoft did a big change, because before that they were much more family oriented.
Yes.
And then suddenly they bought Rainbow Six,
not a family oriented game. Yeah.
And we're gonna make a game about third echelon and this spy who's killing people, like he's and so we were on that, but I was pretty much burnt out, and I wanted to change, so I left. And then Hugo Dallaire took on the art directing and did a fabulous job. Hugo Dallaire, who is now the art director and one of the co-founder at Red Barrels.
There you go.
And they did all the Outlast games,
Yeah. And just further evidence that those people back in those days are now, that are still in the industry, are industry leaders at this point.
Yeah. And so Hugo made a super job with Splinter Cell, of course, and was part of the success, actually. So that was the first success of Ubisoft. And at that time, when around that time, there was Electronic Arts just came by the studio and just dropped some business cards on the sidewalk, because they were hiring.
Of course.
And so anyway,
Amazing.
so that was 2000, and Ubisoft Campus started in 2005, 2006.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why by that point, like, Ubisoft was doing quite well, especially locally, and so, like, people were like, well, if you're going to go learn how to do this, this brand new, sort of seemingly brand new profession, like, what better place to go than the one that's sponsored by Ubisoft?
Exactly. And so I was still deep into animation at that point, but after that it changed completely. Wow. No, it's just that when I came back to Ubisoft, I said, I'm with these guys. They're learning animation. I'm learning too. And when I see two guys who have been working at animation for 3 months, they're learning. They sit together, and their learning curve goes like that.
Oh yeah.
And so, what about peer learning? And we are at that time we were 2,500 people at Ubisoft, and some of the guys were the best in the industry.
Yep.
So sometimes you're sitting just across the best in the industry in that field.
Yeah.
So what if we just made sure that everybody that needs to learn something could learn from everybody else? And so I was lucky. Francis Bayet, the vice president HR, he believed in that, and he gave me loads of time to develop a mentorship program, an internal and he gave me conditions to make it happen. And so I'm super grateful for him because of that. And then for 2 or 3 years, we built a small team, and this was a super fun time. And we matched about we created over 200 pairings.
That's awesome.
All kinds. For animation, but also for finance and for HR and for management.
And
so after that, I left.
you created this amazing thing and then disappeared. It's funny. I just want to, before we go on to the next thing, I just want to touch on this really quickly, because this comes up a lot. And I know you and I used to talk a lot about this back in the day. This idea that so many studios, like, it's because it's funny, because I get a lot of people asking me, like, advice on how to, like, what should be their first studio, and it's a complicated question to answer, because you may not have a choice, because it all depends on who's going to send you the offer. But if you do have a choice, how do you narrow down, like, which one you should choose? And I try to explain that it has a lot more to do than just the salary that they're offering you. You need to be thinking about the big picture. And earlier in your career, the most important thing that you're going to be able to sort of to be trying to make sure is true is that you're in an environment where you're learning on the job. You shouldn't have to stay after hours or do stuff during the weekend to do the learning. It should be like just through osmosis, just doing the job, which is funny because we talk about the 2D animation industry back in the day. It was built into the system. It was literally built into it. You, as a beginner in the field, you would usually traditionally start as an in-between artist and move your way up the ranks. But by doing that, even an assistant animator, you're working with an experienced animator's drawings. You're like, literally, you get them and you're like, oh, wow. And you learn literally off of those drawings. Because you're working with their stuff. It would be the equivalent of me being like your lead animator. I start the scene in Maya, I set the key poses, and then I hand it off to somebody that's a subordinate of mine who then has to work with that scene that's already been started. People would probably not like that very much, but that was kind of the way it was done in 2D.
It was osmosis. Osmosis was
osmosis.
The right word,
Yeah. It was
absolutely
not an extra effort. It was happening on the job.
Yeah, to me, the two important thing, I completely agree. How much are you going to learn, and what team are you with? That would be the two criteria.
Yeah, like, what are you going to be working on, essentially?
And it's crazy how we've known each other for 20 years. We can celebrate 20 years today. It's almost 20 years. And
that's true.
I didn't know the first time I met you. I didn't know. You never know.
You didn't know what?
I didn't know I would still know you 20 years
No,
after.
That's true. No, you had no idea at the time.
But it is. That's the fact,
But here we are. Here we are, Jeff.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fun.
It's super important. But at that time, when I was teaching and doing the mentorship program, the big word that was always driving me was potential. So it comes back to what you say also. Potential was a concept that just really drove me, and potential in people and potential of what could happen. And so anyway, so when I left Ubisoft, it's just because I wanted to go explore more experimental things. That's why I left. And so I started a company where I could just live off what I also do. I didn't want to create anymore for money. I wanted to separate the income and the creative part, because I didn't want to have to create to please. I want to create because I want to try things and to and then as I started creating and being an artist, I found virtual reality, and I started really liking playing with virtual reality, and not so much animation anymore, or just not exclusively animation. And I did some animation research also during the 4 or 5 years. And I did an arts master's degree, digital art master's degree at the NAD Center. And so I was really just playing with different concepts and trying things out. And so it turns out that as I was starting to create more and more, I needed programmers again, because I wanted to put my projects further. So I created a company so I could hire programmers, and I thought I would do art with that, but I don't like to mix art and business. So I was super unhappy. I had a very rough year. Life went down pretty much. And then
it's because you found yourself kind of back to square one. Is that why? Basically, you wanted to start this company to avoid that, but yet just the way the universe works, it sort of brought you back there again. And you're now what?
Yeah, it wasn't about art anymore, And then not only that, but there was a financial stress and all of that, and also so I came to a point where I was having a depression without really acknowledging it and still plowing through and not stopping and becoming paranoid. I was really, and I was not sleeping. So I spent a year like that.
Oh, I had
so
no idea.
Yeah. That's why girlfriend left and all that story.
Yeah.
That was 2018. So, and then when I came back from that, it's just, it flipped. That's when the company took a more humanistic turn. Instead of trying to make art with that company and not achieving that, I said, okay, I'm going to do business, but I'm going to do business for projects that make people happy. That's why.
Yeah, that's cool. Which is funny, which is interesting, right? Because it's like, now it's like, because I think in your mind, that's probably what art was supposed to do, right? You were going to create art that was probably going to make people happy. But now you're like, no, let's skip to the end. Let's try to make sure no matter what I do, that I'm for sure improving someone's life out there. Like basically, who cares what that is? Let's just focus on that, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And was that the secret sauce? So you feel like, so just making that shift in your mind, it changed a lot of things for you?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, because the purpose of what I do has always been so important, and that's instead of being driven by animation, I loved animation and it had a purpose, and then the purpose changed to potential and people, and then experimental, going back to art. That was the purpose of just asking questions and thinking. To me, art is like philosophy, but applied philosophy, because there's an object around which you think. And so that's why I wanted to not be in production. I wanted to use all these tools and skills for thinking. And then and then business, but there's no purpose. So and then when purpose started again, I'm happy.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's sad that the commerce part of that equation tends to distract us from what is, like the human part of that mission, like you said, right? Like that's why I'm always impressed by people that are able to operate efficiently non-for-profit organizations, because there's a very delicate balance that needs to be struck, right? As soon as it starts to be not about serving the actual people that you're trying to help, then like what are you doing this for? It's like it starts to like no longer serve the purpose, and most people get involved in those kind of things. That's the whole reason. That's like the raison d'être to even being part of that, right, is that they're helping people as opposed to helping themselves, or trying to just worry about money. And it's like,
I hope I didn't bother people too much with the history part at first, because this is really interesting.
Yeah. No. It's good. I think it's important to set the stage. I like it, because I think people need to know. Because here's the thing, is people in our community, we have people from all different walks. Like we have people that are just starting out. We have a lot of veterans that just like to watch the streams. And like, no matter where you are in your careers, the future is always something that people need to be cognitive of, right? Like we had someone on not so long ago that talked a little bit about building your brand and thinking about what's going to happen next. Like it was great. He dropped a mental grenade on everybody and said, look, like, how many people out there know animators that have retired? And everyone's like, exactly. His point was that animation is still relatively new, that we don't know. We're all pioneers still. We're trying to figure it out. And does everyone see themselves animating until they're in their 60s or early 50s and then retiring? Like, are they what does that look like? What does it look like when you start to get, I'm coming up on 50 and like, I'm starting to think like, what is happening? Like my career is definitely morphed over the years, and I'm less hands-on, a little bit more leadership oriented. But not everybody is going to necessarily be suitable for that kind of a role. So so his point was, you got to start thinking about the next, like, what's chapter 2 look like? Where does chapter 3 look like? And it's interesting that we're seeing from you is we're kind of in a very condensed period of time. We're seeing kind of this trajectory form, right? And it took you a number of years for you to finally get to the realization of like, wow, what really gets, like, I thought it might have been animating, but now having looked at it and knowing myself a little bit better, it's actually, I could think all along I was trying to communicate with people. And it was just animation was the one that I used to do that. And it's just, I mean, does that seem fair? Like, is that maybe what you were maybe trying to do all along, and now you just found a better, more direct way of doing it?
I'm not even sure. I could be doing something different in 10 years, you know.
Yeah, who knows? Chapter
It's
3.
just right now that's what's happening, and
Yeah.
I feel happy with doing that, and I feel
Yeah.
that I'm relevant doing that, and
Yeah.
and I haven't, you know, quite understood how to do it completely yet. So it's still a challenge, you know.
Just figure it out
That's
as
the
you
other
go.
thing. At one point,
Yeah.
when you don't have as much challenge, and
Mm.
and all that led to that didn't lead to that. It was just
Mm.
it wasn't a logic sequence.
Yeah.
There was a progression. You know,
Yeah.
the first few projects I was leading, I think I was if I had myself as a boss, I was taken me and throw me out the window. You know, if
I doubt it.
I wasn't a great boss to have at first, and now I think it's much better. You know, so so there is progression, but the logic sequence of what happens in the career.
Yeah, it does. Sometimes it's just about rolling with the punches and just kind of adapting and pivoting, right? And kind of going with the flow, which it sounds like is exactly what you've been doing, which is funny because it seems like you've had some low points and some high points here. But I think the one thing that seems to be obviously true is that you were following your heart in some way. And so many people will have or will continue to work jobs that they don't love. You know what I mean? And they won't decide, you know what? Maybe I'm supposed to be doing something different and I'll try something else, you know? And I think that most inspiring thing about this is that you decided to just be like, I think that there's something more for me and I'm going to just damn well go find out. So let's talk about this new thing then. Cause I mean, we've been kind of obscure about it at this point. So like, what is this thing then right now that you are focusing your time? Like, what was the genesis of this whole thing? Like start at the beginning of maybe like figuring out, you know, the product itself and like the actual service, and then maybe like then how you're trying to use it to improve people's lives.
Yeah, well, right now we started a project in 2020 that brings nature in VR to people who can't access nature anymore. Or I say anymore, but it could be that they never accessed in their life because some people never went in the woods. That exists.
Very true.
People that live in a place where, you know, some people in Montreal have never, you know, kids. Sometimes there's some camps that invite kids that never went to the woods. That happened. That exists. You know. So and we're not conscious about this necessarily, or not everybody is. And also some people who are in a wheelchair that have always been in a wheelchair for
accessibility problems. Yeah,
that happens. And so, and also I spoke to some Inus on Côte Nord, you know, some natives that told me, well, we have some of our elders were born in the woods, the old-fashioned way. They were born before natives were sedentary, you know, and now they can't go to their ancestors' lands anymore because their legs weren't tuned because they had diabetes, you know. So there's a real disconnect between nature and a lot of people. So we're bringing nature back to people, and that was created because in 2018 when I was dipping, I was starting to we had the company, and one of the projects that was pivotal is some psychology researchers that came in and said, "Oh, we need a VR company. We need to we're creating this therapy for social anxiety, and we need to expose patients to their fear in VR. And so we need to expose people to groups in VR, so it's not dangerous for them and they can stop at any point, but it will trigger them, you know." And so we started playing with this, and we started working and collaborating with researchers, and then it was different. It was a project that really made a difference, and okay, let's go this way. And I was seeing, you know, I lost my dad 10 years ago, and so you know how it affects the family. And I saw how my mom was affected by that, and we got much closer. And I was wondering, what could VR do for elders? And I don't really like how our society treats older adults. And so what could we do? What can we do? You know, and what could I do with what I know? And what could this marvelous media of VR immersion do for elders. And as I was thinking about that and getting answers with that, talking about with foundations, and I started doing some volunteering at a respite home for handicapped kids, which is also a palliative care home for kids. And I just wanted to drop a question at them and say, what could VR do for these guys? And so I got trained as a volunteer with them. And the project was, we'll just try some things in VR. I didn't do anything in VR for them. I was just going to try things that exist and see. Some of them are blind, so that doesn't work. Some of them doesn't have what is the good cognitive level of disability that is okay. Now it's starting to be okay. They can use VR, and maybe I'm going to create an art project with them after or something like that. But it got to a point where they loved it. Kids loved it, and they loved especially to see the world. And also they loved. There's one story I tell often is a girl. She was 14, and her blood sugar was going like that all the time. And she was in a wheelchair forever. And then I found just an image for her, a very pixelized image with no noise, no sound, of a tropical island, because she said, I want to go on a tropical island. So I okay. Go. And after a minute,
so it was a 360 sort of like image. So in VR, the experience would be wherever she would look like she was in a static but 360 degree environment, right?
Yeah, under the sun and everything, on a beach with no wave movement. And so I told her after a minute, I say, oh, do you want to go in Egypt and see the pyramids? No, just leave me here a few moments more, Okay.
Oh, wow, interesting.
And then okay, do you want to go now in Egypt, see these things? No, would you shut up?
I'm enjoying the beach. Yeah.
So what we're doing with the project, it's called Toujours Dimanche, Always Sunday. We bring people, like, everywhere you go in this application is going to be beautiful. And we just stick the camera there. It's a 11K camera, and we stick it there, and we film for 30 seconds or a minute, and it's just going to roll into a loop all the time. It's a seamless loop, so you can be on the beach forever. And then you have motion, it's a movie,
exactly,
and you have audio, and it's super high res, and then it's multiplayer. So you can be with somebody else, and you see their avatar, and you can.
I didn't know that.
And you can be away. You can be far away from your grandkids and be with them, even though you're not.
But you could be with them at the beach if you wanted to, right? Basically.
Exactly. And then you get to tell them, "Oh, that's where I met your grandma," and start doing that. Because
totally.
We work with different institutions, health institutions, and among which palliative care. And so when I go, so I volunteer with some palliative care homes, and I accompany people with the application, and it's a great way for us to develop and to be in line with what they need. And when I sit aside, it's somebody who's going to die in 2 weeks, and I don't know them, but because we are on a beach somewhere or in a forest, and it starts making their mind travel. And then they remember things, and it's important for them to say who they are, who they were, and who they want to leave, behind. And so they start talking about super personal stuff. They don't know me, but it becomes an excuse.
That's it. It's like a conduit somehow. It's interesting. That's interesting. Wow. So that must be very satisfying for you to be somehow interacting with people on such a personal level, especially considering what your mission was, right? Your mission was to bring technology into the world of people who need it to improve their lives. Do you feel like you're able to check some boxes in your mind now as far as what you were setting out to do?
But yes, this is part of it. It also drives I think the team is really happy also when that we have a purpose, but I'm also happy to see how it can grow, overgrow just me. It starts being in the hands of others now, and
exactly. It's like you started a movement.
It's really it's going slowly, but it's still something that's And so this is one project, and then we're planning some further projects also that we want to do, of course with elders, but also with others. And it's just a question of saying, okay, so that technology, how can we use it differently?
Yeah.
You know? Not differently,
Exactly.
but just for different purposes. And,
really different, because the people who developed a VR headset for sure weren't thinking about the elderly, for instance. They were thinking about gamers and like exciting high adrenaline, like immersive experiences. But it just so happens that same technology can bring a whole other level of
although the first time I tried VR was in '95, and it was a Charlotte Davies piece at the Contemporary Art Museum in Montreal.
Okay.
And so, and what she had done was a full empty room, and you have a VR. Of course, it was 95, so VR with big wires, but you were also wired up so that there was biofeedback. So it was super innovative,
Yeah,
and there was
way ahead of its time, actually.
Yeah,
because they're still trying to figure that stuff out now. They're still trying to figure out how to bring that kind of level of immersion to
and so there was a big tree in the middle of space, and you saw the roots, and it was kind of semi-transparent, and based on your breathing and heartbeat, you could lower to the roots or go up in the leaves, and so it was all based on your relaxation.
Interesting.
So it's not that far from, and it was much deeper actually. So
that's crazy. Yeah, because it's taking a bunch of biometric feedback and bringing that into the real time experience that you're actually having in VR.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
It's
so I mean,
you
go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm pursuing now. I'm coming back to the art practice, because since the company is getting a bit more in shape now, I can go back to art. I'm starting to do art besides the career again.
Okay.
Interesting. And well, it's a different career. It's two careers, because I did start showing my work a bit around the world, but now I have to do it, just on the side, because I don't want to do it for the main purpose of my career, to say. And so one of the next projects I want to do is close to that, because obviously it had an influence on me. I want to do something with biofeedback and frequencies, and I think the immersive device is really, really nice to play with what we output and what we all that goes on inside us, and to feed that back to us, feedback that to us. It's really super fascinating.
Well, I mean, if anyone who's ever used VR before will know what I'm saying here when I say that it brings immersion to a whole other level, because you are really truly, especially with a modern day headset like an Oculus or a Rift. I mean,
HTC.
Yes, exactly. Like a Steam. What are they called though? They're called Index, I think. Yeah.
Oh,
so I don't have one, so that's why I don't know. But I definitely have an Oculus, and because it's 3D tracking the room, camera tracking the room, it can capture your movement, right? So you now have three-dimensional sort of. Some games you'll play, you're just sitting down, but there's some games that encourage you to be like mobile hopefully in a safe space without anything to trip on. So this is just, it really, really, really helps the idea of selling that you're there. So if you were to then somehow have that world react to you based on your, like you said, your heart rate and these other things, there's all kinds of things that you could do that would really amp it up. I mean, so something I wanted to talk about, because timing is interesting here. Like you said that this was all started back in 2020, and early 2020 was smack dab in the middle of the beginning, really, of the pandemic we find ourselves still sort of trying to claw our ways out of. But I think that it's interesting because you said that the main mission was to connect people who would otherwise not be able to connect to it due to some sort of accessibility issue, whether that's geography, whether that's economic, or whether that's like physical. There's lots of reasons why people can't connect with nature. Trying to connect people with nature, right? That can't otherwise do it. But it's interesting because what happened, of course, during the pandemic was many more people found themselves in the category of not being able to access places because there was a lockdown. So I found it quite meaningful that your company was exploring this space of trying to bridge that divide, because that's a divide that people who otherwise would have normally be able to get to some of these places just simply find themselves in a situation where they couldn't. And so it just goes to show you that it's like accessibility is not necessarily something that you think it is. It's not just, doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be economic. It could be lots of things. It could just be even emotional, like some people are just depressed and they can't get themselves outside. And every time that they do, they're like, why do I not go outside more often? Because it's amazing. It makes me feel better every single time. So now, and it's funny because I wish I'm going to make sure that people have links, because I think everyone needs to see the beauty. Like we're just talking about it. So like, it's really difficult to connect. I'm going to play a video in a second here, but before I do, I just want to describe the scenery. I mean, Quebec, which is where we both live, is known as La Belle Provence, right? And it's funny because it wasn't until I ventured outside of the Montreal area that I realized exactly why it's called that. And it truly is unbelievable. Like, it is unbelievable. You can travel north, right, where you get into like, it's where Tremblant, which is where a lot of people probably are familiar with Montreal if they're a skier, right? Because it's up in the mountain ranges in the northern part of Quebec. You could travel to the east and along the river, and it opens up along the St. Lawrence River. There's Matane that's way out there, which is beautiful. If you also out there is a whole other community of Quebecois people that live in like the Lac Saint Jean area, and it's beautiful. I've only seen pictures. I've always wanted to go there, but that part of it's just unbelievable. So what I find interesting about, like, not only are you connecting people to these places, but you are traveling there. You are experiencing the people that live in these places. You're experiencing the places themselves. That must be profound. I mean, I'm on your Facebook feed, so I get a good dose of some of these places you're going, and I am blown away with just the images and the stories behind these places. So that must be extremely creatively satisfying for you as well. Like, it's a whole other layer to this whole thing, right?
It was a motive.
Oh yeah.
when I was thinking of, the pandemic started and I had a few projects I wanted to go towards. There was like, okay, so maybe VR and mindfulness, and VR and palliative care, and VR and this. So I had a few, and also maybe just going back to a plain art practice and just ditching the company. That was also on the table, So I was thinking about it, and I had a wall with all these, and on the wall was also travel more.
Yeah.
And so I wrapped up the project with a lot. Like, there's mindfulness, there's palliative care, there's the elders, there's travel more.
Oh man, all of them. Checked all those boxes, baby. I'm telling you, I am living vicariously through you, because, and I mean, so it's a little talk about creative too, because you are the one doing the filming, right? So, on location, you often take a couple snapshots there's one that you put out there recently that was like, I think it was a field of like, it was like a field. Yeah. The lighting, it was like either dusk or dawn, and the golden light that was pouring on what looked to be like tall grass, or maybe even a wheat field. I don't know what I was looking at really, because was it wheat?
Yeah.
Okay,
I remember
so
you commented on it. You said, "Oh, now that's a picture," or something.
That was crazy. Yeah. So now, I mean, naturally, I'm chomping at the bit to be able to see the VR experience of that, because I mean, if you could capture a moment like that with just a snapshot, to like feel like you could live inside that moment in VR would be a whole other thing. So people,
moments I had a few sunsets that are memorable. There's a few places that were just, the fog was perfect. Or there was the best sunset I saw was in Bejuan Bits. Bejuan Bits is on Côte Nord, far away, beyond Sept-Îles. And I was on the top of a hill. Some people because when I get somewhere, I go see the people who live there, and I say, so where should I go? I'm doing this. Where would you go? And so one guy told me, go on that hill. You can go through there. That's very remote.
I love it. And this is the locals. The locals are telling you like the path to the special place. Oh man, that's so cool.
And so I got to that hill, and it started snowing at that time. And it was very. I'm trying to get wilderness. I'm trying to get nature that we don't really see what human in there.
For
so
sure.
I'm always going out back. And so I put the camera there, and the sunset started catching a cloud of snow that was coming in far away. I could see super far, and it was just a veil, and it was pink. And on that side, it was blue because it was sunshine. And there was the village there. And then there was the river and some islands. And so, and over half an hour, it changed to pink, to orange, to dark gray with this like a pink sun, to another layer of pink. But it was starting to snow like that, and it was below zero. And so the camera didn't like that.
No.
And it was pouring snow inside the fan. And so I don't have it. I don't have it.
No.
I tried so much to get it. I was, and
but you have that memory. It's so vivid, right?
Yes. It's the best. I have pictures. I can show you pictures if I can share my screen.
Yeah, you can. Totally.
The best sunset I ever saw. I'm trying to get some pictures now.
I can only imagine. It's what's funny about this is that like this is kind of in essence what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to capture that moment so other people could come as close as possible to experiencing what you experienced there. Like it's like this beauty of nature that is profound. You want to be able to share that with the world, essentially, especially with those of people who really need it, especially for those people who can't access it. And then now what you've discovered is people that just by presenting them with this kind of a place that might provoke nostalgic memories is during a time of the final chapter of their life, being able to like let out things that they might have bottled up otherwise, and brought to their unfortunate end of life. I find that really interesting. The emotional impact it has on the palliative patients. Okay, I'm gonna bring your screen up so people can see it. Let's do this so people can.
Yeah,
there we go. It could be the star of the show. Yep, it's up.
So this was just clouds on the back over there, and it was coming in, and then you can see there's a bit snowflakes there that are falling. But so I was trying to get some pictures to remember while I was trying to get the camera working. And
so was that a bear?
No.
Oh God, that looked like a bear. I'm like, dude, that's so funny.
Yeah.
So there's a shot of your camera there. The camera you're using, is it an Insta360 or what is it? What's the brand that you're using?
It's an Insta360 Titan.
Titan, yeah, that's it. That's like the commercial grade 360. Or I'll take off your.
Exactly. You did it. I could have gone with a Pro 2. Pro 2 would have been better, actually, if I had an advice to give.
Is that the next level up? The Pro 2?
Just below.
Oh, really? Okay, interesting.
The Titan is 11K.
Okay.
And it's about 15 pounds. So you have that in your backpack, and then
and you're lugging that into the wilderness.
Out back. Yeah, and also it's big, so it's harder to handle and everything. The Pro 2 is 8K, so 8K is still more than we can display on the Oculus.
Yeah,
I went for the Titan because I wanted to be in 5 years, our images are going to
future proof it. Yeah. Well, what's important for those who haven't dabbled in 360, I've dabbled a little bit. I have just a little, I have an Insta360, but it's
you do amazing pictures.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I would say amazing, but I mean, I goof around a little bit with it, and it's not like a pro level. The thing is when they advertise the resolution, it's super important because when he says 10K, so you say 10 or 12? 11. Okay. Well,
but 10
right in the middle.
bits.
So yes, it is 10 bits too.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So when you were talking about resolution, you have to remember that's the resolution that it uses to create the entire image. So with the output image is obviously going to be much smaller because you're only going to see a fraction of that full sort of 360 sort of essentially globe that is created with this sort of technology. So it's super important to go pretty high because if you want an HD output with really good resolution, then you need to be up and around the 11K mark because otherwise it's going to get a little grainy like mine does because mine's only like I can't remember what mine is. It's something like 2.7K or something like that.
The prototype we did for the prototype I mentioned in the crowdfunding video we can't use these images anymore because it was with a 5.7K, so it's much too grainy. It's not comfortable when you look at it. So, but it's been a real learning curve for me because I'm a real-time 3D guy. I'm a real-time 3D. I like real-time 3D VR. The thing you were discussing earlier, when you can move around and pick some things up.
Yeah.
And so this is the only projects we have that is a 360 video. And there's other guys that are going to start shooting for us also. There's Patrick Nadeau. Patrick Nadeau is a photographer from Beauce. He had kind of the same idea. He wrote me last summer because
that's so cool.
Insta360 published an article about what we do.
That's great.
So he saw that and he said, "Well, I was just thinking about doing that." And I started shooting, and I'm going around schools, and so he went to British Columbia and Alberta this summer, and he shot tons of images that we're going to put in the project. And we're going to have a lot of collaborations with, and he's really a super good photographer. That's his profession. Stéphane Desmeules, that you know.
Oh yeah, I love this man. He's so prolific, and his images are amazing.
So he's gonna pitch in with all his aerial shots.
Oh, that's great.
It's gonna be amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I started goofing around too with my drone. I've been shooting some. He inspired me. I started throwing mine up in the air to catch the sunsets by where we live, and it's like Stéphane. He's such a great guy. It's funny. Interesting side note. Stéphane is a man I would consider very similar to you because he also ended up. He was at Ubisoft for many years. He is a professional artist just like you, but he always seemed to tend to find himself in a position where he's more interested in the meta, like how like driving teams, teaching people. You know what I mean? Like he's so like I put the two of you guys together are going to be an unstoppable force.
We were at school together at NAD.
Oh, so, okay. We're all started together. So
he makes me think of my brother a lot. Yeah. So
he's great. I love this man. Okay, I'll have to get him on the show sometime. So, so I think this is a perfect time to show the video because it's important to note that right now you happen to be doing an actual crowdfunding for a new project, and I'm going to, which is all tying into this whole thing. It's sort of a culmination. So I'm gonna show everybody the video that is the introduction video of that particular project, just to get everyone some perspective on exactly what's going on like right now. And I think it will it'll sort of check some boxes on some of the questions that people might have at this point. So 1 second.
Hello, my name is Jean-François Malouin, co-founder of Super Sublime. Thank you for your interest in our project Toujours Dimanche. Instead of making a flashy sales pitch out of this video, we thought we'd show you how we actually work with our partners. The images you're looking at right now are part of a prototype we made during summer 2020, specifically for this man right here. This video was shot at Maison Saint-Raphaël, a palliative care home we work with, and this man had cancer. Sadly, he passed away 2 weeks after this film was made. A few weeks prior to that, a therapist had told us how this man had regrets he had never seen Île d'Orléans, a beautiful place near Quebec City.
Do you want me to speak over?
So when we heard that, and we intended to make a prototype.
Sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to say, I don't know. I thought if you want to keep it rolling, and
I'll let the whole thing play. I think it'd be fun just to watch the whole thing. Okay. It's not. Okay. Yeah. We'll let the whole thing play, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
We thought, well, let's make one just for him. And so we went at Île d'Orléans. We bought some cameras and we shot some images, and then we spent 3-4 weeks programming a VR prototype to offer him the Île d'Orléans experience. The images we selected today are important in the process because our VR session with him actually influenced the end product. And this is interesting because it's how we work. We like to have a very open collaboration with people. You see here I'm using my phone with the casting feature of the Oculus, so I can view what he is seeing through his VR headset, which is nice, but it's limited. I mean, I can't interact with him and I can't control anything. What I really wanted to do is to assist him because he didn't want to play around with buttons or controllers or any user interface. So I was trying to guide him and help him out as good as I could, but the fact was I couldn't do much. And so that's when design evolved. We thought we had to make tools for healthcare professionals, volunteers, so they can assist people who don't want to bother with any user interface and really just want to enjoy nature. And so this moment with this man actually made our work evolve. And at the same time, we made his day. And we had an impact on his life. So this is representative of our project in a nutshell. A very open collaboration and touching people before the end project is made. Well, since then, our project evolved a lot. This assistance feature we imagined that day was now fully implemented. We can now use a mobile phone or tablet to assist users in VR, whether they are just close by or at a distance, cities apart. And now we're going much, much further. We want to measure scientifically the impact our app will have on mental health. And to do that, we started a partnership with the McGill Mindfulness Research Lab. They will evaluate the effects of Toujours Dimanche on the mood and psychological resiliency of 120 older adults. That is why we call for your support today. We ask for your help to fund this research. And with your support, together we'll touch a lot of people's lives for the better. Well, it's now in your hands. I hope you do answer our call. I want to thank you for your time and listening. I thank you for your support, and I wish you to be happy. Thank you.
I'm telling you, Jeff, that is, I find myself kind of like, I'm very emotional. I just, the seeing that man like experience that. And like, and it's just so, it's so juxtapositional, you know what I mean? Like we often see older generation people wearing VR and it's sort of like a joke, right? Because it's like, oh, you know, grandma doesn't know how to VR there. She's on a roller coaster ride. And it's like to watch him like a child experience this, like for the first time, the way he kind of just eagerly looks around, like he was surprised he was able to see this place that he's always wanted to go. And you kind of brought it there to him. Yeah. I mean, this
guy, he had a bad day because when you work with palliative care, you never know how it's going to go. And so he was having a bad day. His energy was low. He hurt. And so he just came back from a walk with his brother. And we were supposed to meet him. He didn't know why. We kept it a surprise. We thought, we're going to, you know, and we're not doing that anymore because we learned. It should be announced. And anyway, they should anticipate and be expecting and, you know, and be eager. But at that point, since we kind of picked up on something that he wished and we did it for him, you know, we thought, we're going to, but anyway, he was expecting our visit. I met him before and we had a chat and everything. And so he knew me a bit. And that day when I got to his room, he was like, and we proposed him to experience it, and he was okay, maybe, but I'm a bit groggy, and at one point he ate his cake because the therapist said, "Oh, you got a nice piece of cake. Did you eat anything?" "Oh, no, I'm gonna have it." "Okay," and then I'm gonna have another coffee and blah, blah, blah. So. And when he was set, he put the thing on, and he lasted for an hour and a half in there. First time VR. Yeah.
That's impressive because a lot of people don't last that long for the first time in VR.
No. And so he kept, you know, he wanted to go again and just stay there. And
he was just sucked right into that world.
Yeah. Yeah. He had a bad day. He was, you know, he knew he was going away and everything, and he's just like, he loved it. And after that, apparently, he was super excited for 2 weeks. He was talking about it all the time. And people were so generous when we shot that. People of tourism around Ile-d'Orléans helped us find best spots and got us hooked with some people to film there and everything.
Yeah.
And then a musician played for us, and it was, people were pitching in so much. And so this is the mobile version. So we can be in VR, but we can also be in with our phone or tablet, because
it's a 360 video.
Yeah. And then so this was a super sunset with crashing waves that
Oh,
catch
man.
the sun, and on the other side is I'm really bad right now, but there's these big
Oh,
rock
wow.
formations, and so this was Côte-Nord, and so if you don't have that many helmets, you can still assist people and be with them, and you see their
Yep.
avatars in there, and they see you.
Mhm.
They see the avatar of your phone. Like if you do that with your head,
Yeah.
if you do that with your phone, it's your head in the VR. It's going like that. So it's really fun.
So crazy. Like, I mean, what inspires me, it's just so easy to understand how people would get inspired by this and want to rally behind the whole project. Like, so yeah, of course you show up there and you tell people what you're doing. It's like, who wouldn't want to, like,
Yeah,
like,
of
it's
course.
such a
Yeah.
small gesture to just help find a spot that like they're proud of where they live. So of course they want to show you, but even more so because they hear this touching story that you're doing this for this man. And then of course the musician, I'm sure they felt exactly the same way. It's like, it's almost like everyone just wanted to be a part of that celebration, like, man,
Yeah,
it's just so touching on so many levels. I want to make sure though by the end of the stream, and because I don't think I got this, I got the link to the video, but do you have a link that we can share to people the actual campaign itself if people
yes,
are so inclined to look into possibly supporting the project, because it's obviously a very noble
of
one.
course. We
If you
do
paste
need
it,
support.
if you paste it in the private chat, Scott will take care of it and make sure it goes up in chat, and we'll also make sure we we make it accessible on our website as well.
So I'm putting the English page,
Yeah.
but unfortunately,
There's a French one as well.
Yes,
Oh,
but
sorry.
unfortunately, we cannot. It's a crowdfunding platform that doesn't allow for multilingual campaigns.
Okay.
So the direct that all the UI is English, but
Yes.
the content is still French.
Got it. Okay.
If people
I think-
have questions, they can
Yeah.
hit me up, and
I'm sure
of course.
people will be able to figure it out. I'm sure it's like a button that says donate, and or at least looks like a donate button. What could possibly go wrong, right? That's fine. You're just sending your credit card information across the internet.
Well, thank you
so-
for sharing all that. Yeah.
No, I mean, no, thank you. Like, it's, I love that we were able to get you on here and talk about something that is like, what I found interesting about your story is that, like, it started out in animation, right? But like now look at what you're doing. It's just like, talk about what's your chapter 2 to what's your chapter 3. It needs to be something meaningful to you. And I find it so inspiring that you have found something that is clearly meaningful to you and obviously very meaningful to other people. It's just like, I see the future of this being like, global. Like, I mean, this could start like so locally. You're starting to see it already by people joining forces with you and then shooting some stuff out in BC. It's like, what's next? Ideally you'd have people contributing to this project worldwide. Like, why not? Like, it's just, it could be so gigantic, and because there's so much potential here.
Next year, what we want to start doing, because we've been shooting mostly locally, and then Canada, but of course we want places from Vietnam, but we're gonna ask people to send stuff, and there's a guy, there's a National Geographic photographer in Quebec who's doing some under ice filming. And he said, "Oh yeah, I'll go take some." He just wants to volunteer doing it, So
that's it. The technology exists now, like because you can have like lower resolutions. Like you put one of my cameras, like it's the 360 Insta 1X. That thing is pretty small, and you can put a dive-proof casing on it, attach it to your head, and go underwater. It's not going to be as high a resolution as what you're getting out of the Titan, but it's still something. It's still like it gets the job done and gives you an experience that you otherwise would not be able to have.
We want to try, and he knows a guy who makes casing, waterproof case. So we're gonna try to make a waterproof case for the Titan.
Oh man, that's
if
so
we have
cool.
funds, if we have money to do it, but otherwise
crazy.
we're gonna find another way. But we're gonna.
Yeah. I'm surprised they haven't done that yet. I'm surprised Insta 360 hasn't come up with a way.
I'm in contact with the people at Insta 360, and I asked, and they don't have anything.
Nothing on the horizon. Well, when in doubt, do it yourself, I guess. Huh?
Exactly.
I think this is a perfect time to kind of segue a little bit into questions. We only have about, I guess, what is that, 17 minutes left. So let's a perfect time. And look, Christine's in chat. I don't know if you see her. She's floating around in there. She's got a question. There she is. So I'll ask her question first because I'm biased and because I love her. Do elderly express some feelings of dizziness when wearing Oculus? Is this a challenge for you? Like the interfacing of getting people that are older, not used to that kind of tech? Because I know that myself, I get a little bit queasy if I wear VR for too long. So have you had challenges in that area?
This is worse with 360 video than it is with real-time 3D. And it's partly why I prefer real-time 3D in VR. But no, not that much. Because we have high resolution is easier on the eye.
Yeah.
Camera is stable. The camera is, we've done a lot of experimenting with the cars and bikes.
I bet.
No. So camera is stable. If it's not stable, it's on a drone, and a drone that's super far from the subject. And very and there's no acceleration, no deceleration. That's important.
Right.
So we have methods, but since the camera is stable.
And you've discovered this like by just doing user testing. Basically, you tried things, didn't work out so well, and now you've kind of narrowed it down to what works best for the demographic that you're aiming at.
And knowing that some people are going to be subject to prone to dizziness, or because some people are sick, some people are not used to it. So you have to be super gentle. So that's first, and then also we are careful, and we actually train people in long-time care, and we train people in palliative care to accompany users. And one of the things about the training is what to look for at first. First, you have to tell them if you don't feel right, say it. Don't try to maintain because it's going to be worse.
Don't push through it. No, it could end very poorly. Yeah.
So that's one thing. At the same time, just express the fact that there might be some discomfort, but don't scare people, because you don't want to generate the fear in them. But you have to look for it. And then when they put it on, everything, make sure they're comfortable and look at their face. So we are aware of, but we have very few people who have issues.
Okay, that's good.
Almost none. No?
Well,
but we are looking for it.
That gentleman did not seem to have any issue at all. He was in there. As far as he was concerned, his room transformed into that very location that he dreamed about.
We did a poor job. We were so afraid that he would react bad because he had a bad day. And he felt a bit queasy. He felt a bit queasy before.
Oh, boy.
That we scared him. And he was like, I'm not sure.
That's it.
He took his coffee and he put I'm going to put some anti-vomitive in there. And then, okay, I'm ready.
Let's do this. I'm ready to rock. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. I just I agree. Christine was also saying that. What did she say? She says, I just wanted to give that man a big hug because it was deeply touching. It really, I literally almost broke down watching that video. And I'd already seen it. So that just goes to show you just how emotionally provocative it is. It's just something about just seeing a man at the end of his life kind of still have that technology and the story and the project was able to bring out the child right there. Yeah. I saw the child in him alive and well in that room with you, looking around excitedly at the world that was sort of virtually around him. It's just that's so meta to me.
When it was playing, I've seen it hundreds of times, and I grinned. At one point, I grinned because his pose, he had his legs crossed like that, super relaxed. And he almost looked like a dandy, which he was not. He was not a dandy at all. But when after the moment, when I was looking at the videos, like several weeks after, I noticed that sometimes he was falling asleep in his.
No way.
He was like, and you don't see his face, so he's just like.
Oh man.
And then. So he was super relaxed.
Super relaxed. Exactly. Man, that's so interesting.
But it was such a nice moment with him. He was a good guy,
That's special. That's special. Did it take a toll on you though? Because I can imagine, because I know that a lot of people work in that area that are professionally trained. I know that you were trained as a volunteer, but working with people in that sort of that kind of environment can be very trying emotionally for people because it is what it is, right?
When I was with him, I was trying to be mostly present, and I wasn't there to send him back this image or this moment of I was there for the other purpose, exactly, just be there because life is happening.
Yes, it is.
He was also super he was positive, and he loved life, and I don't think it was always the case for him, but during that phase for he had such a crave for life, so it was enlightening, not enlightening, but it was beaming. When I knew he passed away, and for the whole team, it was even though some of the team didn't meet him, but we were touched, of course, to learn about it, and I often think about him.
I would imagine.
And I knew several people. I'm still going to meet a family next week. They asked for. They saw what we do, and they asked for their dad.
Yeah.
Of course, it's super intense and poignant, but at the same time, it's really about real life. This is
for
real
sure.
life.
Yeah, and but then just it's just some people can weather that better than others, right? Because that kind of, when you're dealing with life in such a raw form like this, it's something. So I don't know. You're a stronger man than me. Sorry, was that?
I saw some people some people were our age, and they had the bad luck of getting cancer, and some had just had a baby, and they were going through that. So there's all sorts of different kinds of some people you bond with, an old lady that you bond with more.
For sure.
I've got a friend, a programmer who in the industry, and during COVID he was working at his job, and during the weekend he went into the CHLSD, the long-time care, nursing homes. He answered the call of the government, so he did all his training, and he went helping, and he was telling incredible stories about how he was bonding with patients, and big heart.
I have a gigantic soft spot for the elderly just because I'm just fascinated by the wisdom and they've they are our elders, and they've lived life, and they could teach us so much, and it's a pity that society tends to just put them kind of over here in the corner, and because they slow us down and all these other really that's really how we. And I mean, obviously the pandemic shone a really bright shining light on that problem, because we saw how that sort of the consequences of that kind of prioritization or deprioritization of an entire demographic of people is not exactly didn't work out very well.
It's a huge issue in question.
It is.
Of course, Toujours Dimanche is not going to be exclusively for elderly people, or but
I get that.
We're trying to make it happen for them. That's why we put so much effort around that. But I would be somebody who would like to have
totally
nature, like this.
You're your own client, basically.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So
like anybody can benefit.
We're trying to make something that we would love, and instead of making something for them that it's not second class, we're making it with the highest quality possible, and we're making it because we love it, and we know that they're gonna love it because they were us 40 years ago.
Exactly.
They had our age. They were our age.
Absolutely. I got another question here, and it's perfect because it touches on a topic that I wanted to get into as well. So it's perfect. Patar, who is one of our more prolific audience members. Thank you, by the way. That's not a jab at you, by the way, Patar. He's always asking the good questions. Question. I only recently joined back. So, okay, hold on. Let me just get to the point. Where do you see the future of VR? Medical training, countering phobias, the metaverse, like in your mind, because you're experiencing VR, where do you see, for instance, what you're doing now? What's the evolution of this? What are your dreams and aspirations as far as what you could bring to the table that are going to increase the already gigantic impact that it's having on the people that are experiencing it?
I think the future is going to be closely linked with the device future. And to me, right now we're at the stage that's comparable to the desktop computer, whereas everything happens much more here right now. And so because it's portable, because it's intertwined with our lives. So when VR or AR or all these Rs,
it's gonna be a merger, I think, between the two.
Yeah, when they're gonna blend in more, and I think it's gonna be because of a device, and it's gonna be just a dimension layer on top of the material dimension. So notice I didn't say reality. So there's gonna be the material dimension, and there's gonna be a layer or layers of digital on top of that. And it's going to be woven in such a seamless way. And then, so in terms of content, it's going to be just like anything. But I think when we get to that point, it's going to be it's as frightening to me. It's as frightening as interesting, intriguing, and it's very close to post-humanism, even though it's not. And maybe it's going to be biological. I was going to say maybe it's not going to be biological post-humanism, but it's going to be a post-human era where the material isn't the only dimension we're in. We're going to be in a very complex set of dimensions. And but I think it's going to touch on the biological, because I think part of the answer is going to be nervous. I think we're going to be much less reliable, much less reliant on external devices, and it's going to be much more internal. And we're going to tap into our nervous system much more than our sensory system at one point. Maybe not tomorrow, but I think the digital is going to go that way.
You were already touching on this, right? Like the idea of possibly doing real-time, biometrical feedback. I mean, I've seen research done on re-establishing sort of nerve signals to people who had nerve damage in a limb, and using sort of this kind of technology, and being able to like provide like. I have to try to remember exactly what I saw. I saw this amazing deep dive on this sort of experimentation that had to do with using VR and other sort of real-time feedback mechanisms that allowed people to retrain their brain and their limb to function again. And it was just because it's like the body almost, because you can trick the brain, like literally what VR is doing to you, it believes it's real. And so if it believes it's real strong enough, it's like the ultimate placebo in a way, right? It's like it's able to provoke. Sorry? Yeah, exactly. Neurofeedback.
Yep. And this is getting to be a big trend.
Yes.
And I read some researches about is it Kevin Warwick, Dr. Warwick? They call him Captain Cyborg. He's in the United Kingdom, and he's a researcher who's plugging in different digital components in his body, and his students are doing the same. So he's got a student who had a chip that could sense heat, so he could just sense somebody was there like that. So bringing other sensory.
That's amazing. That's exactly it. Like sort of compensating for maybe a lack of a sense by giving superpowers to existing senses, basically.
But Warwick started doing some telepathy also, because at one point he said, okay, so this nerve here is kind of a nervous highway, super simple, but super high debit. And so he put some electrodes in his arm, and there was a hand at Columbus University in the States, and he was in Great Britain, and he started manipulating this hand through the internet, just based on no other signal than just his nervous system. Then he went one step further, and this is the next step he took is 2012. So it's 10 years ago almost.
Okay.
The next step was to put 100 electrodes in his brain. And he took himself as a guinea pig, because he didn't want to do it to anybody else. Yeah. And he put some electrodes in his wife's arm. Okay. And after a few months of training and discovering what was the signal, she could signal him some things with just like activating her nerve system, like her nerve there.
Wow.
And he was receiving messages that weren't words. It was just like blips, or what is it? He had to feel for it. He had to learn what that new input was. And so in 2014, I think he was looking for a partner to try brain to brain. So I don't know where that, I haven't read his research since, but at the same time, Google X was deciphering dreams at that time also.
Oh my God.
Google X they were catching images from a brain scan. They showed some painting like Mona Lisa to some subjects, and they told the patient, okay, so just remember the painting, and they could catch it. It was a very bad resolution image. It was crude, cloudy, but you could clearly see he was thinking about Mona Lisa. And this is again about 10 years ago. So imagine.
So can you only imagine where it's going to go? I know. I just saw a Vice article on something similar where they were experimenting with like beetles. They were using insects for these experiments, and they were sending electrical impulses into I guess the cerebral cortex of an insect, and they were able to literally drive them remotely. They were able to send signals to their legs this is not even sci-fi at this point anymore. This is like the real deal. Like we're living.
There's also a lot of ethical questions, but
yeah, no, it does for sure. I think that's why they were obviously using insects. I totally agree. But I mean, I think that the potential here was not to create some army of like insect spies.
Yeah.
I believe that the idea was to experiment on insects in a way that they can understand this kind, because I think that the application was meant for people who have nerve damage and would like to kind of reestablish connections to some of the limbs that they might have lost. Can you imagine getting suddenly access to your arm again just because of this technology that involved remote controlling, dung beetles? It's crazy.
Funny how like VR brings these subjects up. I was in a podcast like just beginning of the week, and the questions that the radio had was also around like technology, and is it good, is it bad, and the whole dilemma between technophobia and technophilia. And so when we're talking about post-humanism, because this is all post-humanism, and I'm really critical and cautious. At the same time, I don't want to push it aside, because I think it's technology is also it's part of progress.
Yep. Yeah.
And we have to make sure it keeps on the progress side, as you said, for new limbs, or of course
there's always, I know that's the problem with technology, is there's always bad actors who are going to use it for the wrong ways, but then it's like you have to weigh the pluses and minuses. I think nuclear technology is a perfect example of that, right? It's just, unfortunately that's the dilemma we live as humans, I guess, is that with advances you always take the good with the bad, and hopefully the good will outweigh the bad. That's all we can ever hope for.
As for Petar's question, I think the VR part of that is about perception and sensory experience, so phenomenology. So the whole part of that is covered by immersive, this and that. And I think this is where VR's future is, the immersive part, or the experience part of how we are going to experience the digital or the post-humanism. Now, I think robots at one point is going to be, we're going to be done with trying to make robots aesthetic. Robots are going to have a function, and for all the expressive or aesthetic, we're going to see it digitally in a kind of a holographic immersion that we have,
Yeah.
Things like that.
It's funny. Star Trek seemed to have that right a long time ago with their was it Star Trek the next gen? No, not the next generation. It was one of the more recent ones. the one where they're Voyager, where they're actually stranded on some other end of of a wormhole. They have like a doctor character who's like a holographic projection of a computer. Basically, why try to physically make something that moves around in the real world? It's like the AI is going to be advanced, trying to like, you know, make it physically look like a real person is a fool's errand, really. At the end of the day, like you're saying, it's like, why even bother? Just find other ways of doing that in a more straightforward fashion. You know, I can't.
Radio control car with an arm that can pick up your cup if you want, but the whole thing, the whole rest is AR.
That's it. We don't need to see. It doesn't need to look pretty, right? I can't stop imagining the kind of stuff that you're working on next level, being like, you already said it's multiplayer, right? That's something you can do, is experience it with the other person. When you see what, like, Facebook investing a lot of money in the metaverse, I like the cool, beautiful, because I mean, metaverse, a lot of people have a lot of hesitations and reservations about this as well, right? For obvious reasons. But I think the good that can come from this is, imagine being able to share the kind of experiences that you're creating, but you'll be able to share them with your loved ones together, where you can be there together and witness this amazing place together. And like, you know, imagine, you remember there's a movie a long time ago, it's called The Cell, where people could go into the minds of other people while they were dreaming. It's sort of like, in a way, imagine, you felt frustrated, I could see in that room, and the way you described it, being in the room with this man who's experiencing it for the first time, and all you want to do is guide him. Imagine, fast forward to a day where you are in there with him. You're just there, and you can take his hand and be like, let me show you around. Like, this to me is just like, it gives me shivers just thinking about it, because I know we're going to get there.
We had a project last summer. We had a project with the Fine Arts Museum of Montreal and a few museums, and we were making a VR app for classes with learning disabilities. And we thought, okay, so it's going to be museums showing content to a class. So there's going to be a mediator from a museum animating a class, and everybody's going to have a helmet. So we used our Toujours Dimanche technology to have like 10 or 12 people at a time with helmets, and all in the same. You know, so you saw all these avatars, and we discovered all sorts of problems with that, because a class, a bunch of people. Bunch of kids being avatars in a VR world, you know, it's like, woo!
What could possibly go wrong, right?
It was really fun, though. And,
I would imagine.
And to bring them to get into the experience instead of clear cut, you know, we had a ritual at the beginning. And the ritual was, you were inside the forest. It was real-time 3D, just a dark forest, almost no light, and there was some particles at the middle with a little bit of light. And everybody had to hum the whole group together. And so when they hummed, you know, at one point the particles got like bigger.
That's so
bigger.
cool.
And then you hum like louder, but too loud, whoop, it falls down.
That's so awesome.
Loud, just loud enough, it gets up. And then at one point, more particles, and then you can be louder.
You just blew my mind.
Stars, you put the stars in the sky in the end, you know. And so,
dude. This is crazy. When I was a camp counselor way back in the day, this is something we used to do for the same reason for kids. Big group of them, and they're at a conference, and we're doing some sort of like we're doing some presentation of some sort, but everyone's talking and chatting. You have to get their attention. The best way is to get them involved immediately. And so what we would do is we would do these really cool things where like we would create like thunder, the sound of thunder that would travel through the auditorium because of where they're stomping their feet and then clapping their hands. And I've seen some professionals guide a group of people doing this, and it's unreal. But the idea of doing that in a VR space is just like, you just put up like, that's crazy. Because you essentially just did that. You just described the sort of the VR version of that experience, because now you have real-time visual effects that you can use to like literally give visual feedback to the crowd goal of trying to sustain a note or sustain a volume for a certain amount of time. Oh, that's so wicked. That's so cool.
You know, being together in a body, you know, with people in VR.
Yeah.
VR, which is that super individual stuff, you know. Like, no, you can be together.
No, that's it. That's it. Like like just to think that like the ability to interconnect people by doing that. Because I mean, when you're at a conference in a physical space, doing that moment together, that you feel connected. You're doing something together to achieve a common goal, and that feels inspiring. It feels like bonding. It's powerful, right?
Yeah,
and imagine doing that, like, but be able to do that to anybody in the world as long as they have access to this VR space.
Yeah,
that's crazy. The future can be bright if we so choose to build it that way, right? I guess that's the question.
We could have just said that, and that would be a podcast.
That would have been the show. Hey, Jeff, welcome to the show. Do you have anything to say? Yes, we can build a future, a very bright one, if we choose to do so together. Okay, that's it. Mic drop. Out.
Bye-bye.
Well, Jeff, it's a perfect time to wrap this up. There was one, I just don't want to ignore Richard because he had something here at the end to say. So let me do you mind staying for like 2 more minutes just to field this?
Of course.
Okay. And then we'll do this really quick. It wasn't a question. It was more just, I think, an experience here. So it sounds like, Richard, I don't know if you're still around in the chat, but it sounds like his father experienced VR, and it sounded like it was something from VR, but also including ambient sounds for the elderly. I assume that the video you're shooting, because you're shooting 3D sound as well, right? The Titan actually captures some sort of like
we have
positional audio, right?
Mic. So we have an ambisonic mic, but we rarely use it. We find much better sound on the internet, and we have an audio designer who recreates sound with crashing waves there. And
to layer things in. Yeah,
she does the research to know, so what kind of birds in that part of the world.
That's cool. That's good. Just to sort of dress it up and layer it in there to kind of complete the experience. Yeah, it seems like Richard's dad. I don't know if it was the audio specifically that threw him off, but did you find anybody like during your experiments or your experiments? That makes it sound bad. The user testing. Did you find that the audio had any kind of was the audio anything that it complicated things for people, or was that maybe
no? We try to use audio in the best way possible, because some research showed that a lot of people actually spatialize themselves by their ears and not the visuals. So
interesting.
If you take audio out of an immersive experience, some people have a hard time being there.
Interesting.
So it's really interesting. The audio part that is tricky sometimes is when you are close to the person you're multiplayer with, and you are talking, and they're hearing your voice inside, but with a delay.
That's it. Yeah.
So this is hard because there's an echo. So we put a slider for the voice separate than the sound effects.
The delay is due to latency, I assume, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
The internet latency latency
the server. Yeah, exactly. So, but besides that, they can play with their volume, and we help them at first, and after that, there's no issue. I would be surprised to know what issue Richard experienced, or his.
I don't know if Richard, you're still there. Do you want to add a couple more details? I don't know if he's still around. If you are, now's a good time to drop it. I'll give him a couple minutes to discuss or to figure it out. If he doesn't come back to us, I'm going to assume he's not there anymore. Jeff, I want to thank you today, because this is a very special stream for me, because it was very touching. It sort of showcases a man who's been on an artistic journey, started out in an animation world, finds himself in a very different world. But the $1 million question would be, would you find yourself where you are now if you didn't start in animation? Who knows, right? Maybe the animation was the launch pad that brought you sort of that started this whole arc of yours. So it just goes to show you that everyone's on that arc, and that arc doesn't need to be just because you started doing one thing doesn't mean that that's what you need to finish doing. So
such as you also, it's like you're closer to animation, but at the same time
I don't animate. That's right. Like, I mean, I do sometimes, but it's I find I usually have to fight for an opportunity to do it, because I still do enjoy doing it. But my day is usually filled with other things, which I do enjoy doing. I don't mind the fact that I evolved like that. Yeah, that's it. Just go with the flow.
I want to thank you, because you invited me on this show, and you really wanted to expose what we do with Super Sublime, and to expose that project. And I thank you so much. Yeah, and I'm happy to see you because it's been so long.
I know. Like we were talking about this right before the stream. It's a guilty pleasure of both David and I. A lot of people who end up on the show is either someone we both know or someone one of us knows, and it ends up being almost kind of like a reunion that people can publicly witness online, which is always fun because you know what? It's if life is anything, it is a collection of the wonderful people you meet in it. So. You're one of those wonderful people, my friend. So
we have to grab a bite or a mug or something soon.
Yes, also. Absolutely. We should absolutely do that. I would love to catch up in person. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't see Richard coming back with a question. If Richard, you know where to find me, you can always pass that along and I can connect you and JF. Sounds like you guys might have something that you could share intellectually there. And I'll take care of that offline. Jeff, thank you very much. Good luck with the project. Yes, I'll make sure I spread the word as far and as many times as I possibly can. And good luck with all of the amazing things you're doing.
Thank you.
And pass my praise and my congratulations on to the whole team.
Thank you. Yeah, I will. That's a good point. Yes.
Cheers, Jeff. Bye.
Bye. Salut.
That was awesome. I'm super happy we were able to do that. I know it was definitely a very different stream than we're used to. It wasn't obviously talking specifically about animation, although we did start talking a little bit about, how he started with animation, but where we ended is obviously a very, very different place. And I think that's kind of somewhat fitting considering his story arc. And I don't know, I really do encourage you to take a look at his work. It's super. I always get touched and inspired by people who can take technology that seems to be like something that's just for people that are like, young and ambitious but instead of just making video games out of it, it's like doing something that's, truly meaningful and truly can have I'm not saying that video games don't have a meaningful impact on people's lives. There's a lot of games out there that teach the same way that films teach very important lessons. It's for sure the case, but I don't know. I think that JF's dabbling with something here that is a little next level in that area. And I think I can see all the amazing things that could evolve into. And besides, in the meantime, while that evolves and as that progresses, he's able to, on a daily basis, affect people in a positive way. So I'm going to be closely following Jeff. Maybe we can bring him back someday down the road to see how that road continues, because I'm personally interested, and hopefully some of you are going to be interested in that as well. So again, thanks, Jeff. Thank you, chat, for being here. We had 2 streams, 3 technically. We had 2 conversations with and we had, I don't know if you guys caught it, but we had a really fun Tuesday evening. I don't know, I think some of you were there. It got a little bit ridiculous. It was myself, David, and Jacob. We played a mock debate round where we all get to pick a bunch of controversial topics and then make 2 of the other people debate it. And we forced forced each of the 2 people to argue the different sides of the debate. And it was always fun because someone was normally on the very different side of the debate that they would normally find themselves on in real life. And so we were kind of nervous as we were doing it because we were streaming it live and we didn't want people to just show up and be like, why are these people why would Brent be arguing for that? That's ridiculous. We were just having fun. And we all had, I think we were kind of surprised how much fun that was. So I think we'll probably bring that back and do that again. But by all means, let us know how you felt about that content, because we had fun doing it. If you had fun watching it, then that would be the match made in heaven. We'll do more of it. Until next stream, I'll see you around. Stay animated and be safe out there. Cheers.